Let's turn our attention now to a very important topic here on Bloomberg Baystate Business, and that's the whole lab science explosion. And it's really something. We've tracked a lot of that. Back in the fall, two Cambridge city councilors wanted to do something about that. In fact, they were worried, as others were in the city of Cambridge, that lab science space was popping up here and there in between residential, in between other businesses. And so the idea is to limit these spaces to areas near Kendall Square, Alewife, and Cambridgeport. It would also prohibit new facilities in places like Harvard Square, Central Square, and much of Cambridge Street. Let's bring in Zach Stanley. He's Chief Corporate Affairs Officer at the Mass Biotechnology Council. Zach, good to have you with us. I guess we should start with this. What's your take? What's the take of Mass Bio on this idea?
Look, we're worried about this idea. Anything that starts with a ban, I think, is a bad idea. We can have a great debate about where and how life sciences facilities should be sited in the city of Cambridge, but when we're starting with a ban, that's the wrong place to start.
Mm-hmm. So tell us what actually is happening tonight. I understand that this is actually a citizens zoning petition in front of the Cambridge City Council?
Yeah, that's right. This is sort of the second crack at the apple for proponents here. There's a few councilors who proposed something that's substantially similar back in the fall that really has been stuck in committee, more or less. So this is another attempt to basically do the same thing.
So, Zach, I mean, how you say you're worried, but I mean, my understanding is the first time around it was shot down in glorious fashion.
Yeah, the problem with Cambridge, unfortunately, is even though we are the best place in the world, undeniably, for early-stage R&D and biotech, the city of Cambridge and some certain councilors, I think, would be happy if the biotech industry didn't exist here in Cambridge, or at least was significantly scaled back. And that's a problem because the biotech industry here has really helped Cambridge be the dynamic, vibrant city that it is. If nothing else, the tax revenue has allowed Cambridge to be an unbelievable place to live. They have some of the lowest property tax rates across the state, and they're paying for schools with no debt. Stuff like that's happening because 30% of all tax revenue is coming from labs.
Our guest is Zach Stanley. He's Chief Corporate Affairs Officer with Mass Bio. We're talking about a proposal that is before the City Council tonight. The Planning Board there in Cambridge has already heard the proposal and unanimously voted against it. And it basically calls for bans on new labs in Central Square, Inman Square, East Cambridge, and beyond. Zach, I guess there at Mass Bio, do you understand where these city councilors are coming from? Do you understand their concerns?
We do understand their concerns, and certainly we are not a proponent of having labs everywhere, and it needs to fit within the community, within the neighborhood, and be zoned appropriately. Again, I think the ban's the wrong approach, but let's figure out what the right approach is, because labs belong in the city of Cambridge, and there should be considerations of expansion in other parts of the city where appropriate.
Well, Zach, is a closer look at this. We're throwing the word ban around, but the write-up in the Boston Business Journal indicates that these people are seeking limits. So that might be something that you could all agree on, no?
Yeah, and one of the issues we have with this proposal is the proponents of it seem to be arguing that lab is excluding new housing development, and that seems like a real false choice to us. There's an interesting market dynamics going on right now. I think, if we were talking a year ago, we were anticipating 30, 40, 50 million new square feet of lab and biomanufacturing space across Massachusetts. And by all accounts, those estimates are going down as we speak. The costs are more expensive, permitting's harder, fees and costs in municipalities are going up. But housing has similar dynamics. So that it seems like a false choice to me that proponents are making, that if labs are getting built, that housing's not.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to Cambridge and lab space and this particular industry and environment, how desirable is Cambridge a place to be for these folks who want to build labs?
From all we've heard from our member companies, is Cambridge is the first choice. And what prohibits that from happening really boils down to cost and availability. Cambridge continues to have near zero occupancy or vacancy rates for lab space, especially in East Cambridge and the Kendall Square area. And they have some of the highest per square foot rent for labs in all of the country. And so that's forcing regionalization, which is a good thing. But when it comes down to it, companies want to be in Cambridge, especially early-stage companies, because they want to be close to the action.
Yeah, but Zach, if there's no vacancy, I mean, we've talked to people on this program who do go out to the suburbs, and they do that because, as you just said, the cost, but also there's no room. Doesn't that make this kind of a rather moot point then?
I don't think so, because we want Cambridge to be welcoming and accepting, of course, within reason, within the guidelines and what citizens and the leaders want. But if they're putting, sort of what looks like blanket prohibitions across large swaths of Cambridge, that's a real problem.